Before we jump into today's video, I just want to say thank you for supporting my videos and watching them over the last couple of years because we've hit a bit of a milestone. It's not too big of a deal, but I just think it's cool. We've hit 300 videos on the channel, and I just think that is incredibly exciting and kind of hard to believe that I've made 300 of these little videos of just me rambling about things that I like and how much I just love tech. And I just want to say thank you, and let's jump right into the video. I'll be honest, it has been quite a while since I've talked about non-traditional PC handhelds. And I say traditional in the sense of that they're from a mainstream manufacturer. Think of the Steam Deck, the MSI Claw, the Ally, the Legion Go. Those are the mainline PC handhelds. There's some in the middle. Exactly the one I'm thinking of is the Zotac Zone. That is a, yes, mainstream manufacturer, but the way it has been sold and obtained by most people is not exactly great. And they're also just really hard to come by. And they're also already on number 2 when the first one barely launched less than a year ago. So it's like a mainstream manufacturer pulling the same kind of shenanigans that one of these non-traditional, more boutique PC handheld manufacturers do. And you might be wondering, who are these boutique, non-traditional PC handheld manufacturers? Well, there's some fairly new to the game like Aeneo. They've been in it, not the longest, but they've been around a while, and they make some pretty decent stuff. But as we get into it, they are plagued by some problems. And another example would be 1X Player. They are more recent in my eyes, as in recentness for people discussing them, because I only remember them really cropping up the last couple years, like post 2020, and at this point, that feels still pretty recent to me. So they're a fairly recent addition to the greater PC handheld market, though they probably exist prior. And the granddaddy of all of them, GPD, they've been at it probably the longest, and they are the most professional about it. And something that all of these companies have in common is amazing hardware. Whether it's the amazing OLED screens found on some of 1X Player handhelds, the sheer amazing industrial design and build quality found inside of Aeneo's handhelds, or if it's the sheer ingenuity and creativity in the most portable ones found from GPD. All of these companies are susceptible to the same problem. They are always prohibitively expensive. They make some of the best PC handhelds. Most people simply will not be buying them though, which is profoundly unfortunate. They make, like I said, some of the best looking, best feeling, most interesting PC handhelds. A more recent example of one that I got my hands on was the Techno Pocket Go. This is a PC handheld that takes a slightly different approach. It is a PC handheld minus the screen. It is purely just a controller with 2 Type-C ports, and it comes with, depending on the package you get, these AR glasses, much like the X-Real or the many other manufacturers of these AR glasses. It's super cool, but it was a little unfinished. I got it back in October of last year. Fun fact, the review went out to the day after my birthday, which means I filmed a portion of it and recorded the audio on my birthday. But I say that in all to stress the fact that this device has been in hands of many a reviewer. Even some massive channels like Bingus Studios, or whatever you pronounce that, have made whole videos about adding screen attachments, and I originally did that first, showing off my idea of how to approach it in my 2 weeks later video back in November of last year, which this handheld is incredibly interesting. Plagued by the fault of being prohibitively expensive, but they have adjusted their pricing accordingly. But there's still no word on if this thing is ever going to release. And there have been some discussions, things are finally starting to move, but we're rapidly approaching this thing being in the hands of reviewers for almost a year. Let alone that device's issues, there are more popular ones like the Aeneo 3 and Aeneo in general famously crowdsource their projects. A lot of them are hosted on Indiegogo, and backers pay either a down payment or just flat out purchase the version they want for either a reduced or early bird pricing, and that goes up as we get closer to release. But the iNeo 3 was originally slated to ship in April of this year, and that was true for some SKUs, and some are still not even in the hands of people who purchased them 6 months ago still. While these devices from iNeo are so incredibly cool, from the iNeo 3 modular controller design, or their amazing work with the DS and the KB, which is just, instead of having 2 screens, it has a keyboard. Those designs are so freaking cool, but shipping and fulfillment is an absolute nightmare for the vast majority of people. Ein used to make a lot more PC handhelds. They are famous for the Ein Odin, for all their emulation handhelds and stuff. They had the Loki and all these other handhelds. But as time gone on, people would back their projects, and sometimes they would fully stop production and switch you or upgrade you to something completely different. And people have fallen through the cracks, and people have been forgotten about, ultimately never receiving a handheld whatsoever unless they got on the phone with support, which can be pretty hit or miss. Going on just to overall not have a terribly great experience. That is the continuous problem a lot of these manufacturers have, barring companies like Zotac. Zotac, while pulling the same shenanigans with how many releases that they have, and they're not exactly consistent supply, though from what I understand, they have great support and have that traditional RMA and support process that these major companies tend to have, with not necessarily leaving you out to dry entirely. A great example of the pricing issue, the One X Fly F1 Pro, an amazing OLED 144Hz, amazing, great display, and you get it with a Ryzen 7 8840U, 32GB of RAM, and 1TB of storage. That is the lowest end, cheapest SKU. It sells for $1,100. A PC handheld that conceptually probably will perform worse than a Z1 Extreme equipped ROG Ally X. Or exactly the same, and you're just paying an extra $300 for no reason. There might be an reason. That screen is phenomenal. OLED, high refresh rate, FreeSync and all, that is a great display. But a display alone is not enough to sell me on such a big gamble. Why do that when you can spend $300 less and get an Ally X from your local Best Buy? When you place your order for one of these kinds of things, it's very likely by the time you finally receive it, something better has already been announced, which can be so incredibly frustrating, causing an immense amount of buyer's remorse. On some level, it's not really fair to compare iNeo and GPD to all these other manufacturers, because the major manufacturers out there, Valve, Lenovo, etc., they just have a larger, more dominant market position. They can spend the money on getting all these massive facilities to build, develop, and ship out their handhelds, overall drastically lowering the cost while being able to increase their order amounts to drive down overall costs on their end. So, and having these connections with major retailers, Amazon, Best Buy, Micro Center, all these places locally in the US would be places your average mom and pop would go and purchase a handheld for their child, or the gaming enthusiast to go and see in person, so they don't have to take the risk in fully trusting a review and hoping that they get the same experience too when they finally receive their handheld. And some people have been grandfathered in. Some manufacturers have gained user trust. I think the only one that has been consistently maintaining a certain level of quality and transparency has been GPD. They have a long history of this. They've been making these handhelds for darn near 10 years. And in some form or fashion, they've been making little PCs designed for gaming. All the way back in the day, I remember they used to make these Intel Atom-based gaming handhelds. They were terrible, absolutely terrible in terms of gaming performance. But they've been doing it that long. Their most recent handheld that is still currently shipping is the GPD Win 4. The cheapest version of that comes with an 8840U, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and 1 terabyte of storage, which seems to be pretty standard for some reason for a lot of these PC handhelds these days. And you can get that, assuming you get an early bird special, $830. $30 more than the Ally X, which is not great considering that it's the same level of performance-ish, when the only way to get something better than the Ally X is going to cost you like $400 more. That version comes with a Ryzen AI 9 HX 370, which is essentially the Z2 Extreme. Assuming you're buying that version, I can see some level of justification just for the novelty of its PSP-like design, slide-up keyboard and display and stuff, which is super cool. So I can see spending an extra $400 on the novelty factor, getting the best performance you possibly can, while not having to wait for something like an Ally 2 or the Xbox Ally to come out. So on some level, there is some kind of justification. But for all these other PC handhelds, I don't really see reason, because most of them aren't shipping right now, or you're going to be waiting until after a lot of these other handhelds have already come out. Yes, I do understand there are people out there who appreciate the design or care more about the features that these handhelds have that others don't. But for the average consumer, the person who just wants to boot up their handheld and play some Elden Ring, play some Minecraft on their favorite handheld, I don't see a world where they're ever gonna buy this. And it doesn't make a lot of sense for the vast majority of people due to the cost, the level of risk you're taking on with that much money, and time it takes to actually receive the thing. A lot of the time, you're just at the whim of those companies. At least when you go to Best Buy, you can buy your handheld there and return it after 30 days. I highly doubt the return process with 1X Player is going to be any easier than that. Other than that, I would love to hear what you guys think though. Have you bought any of these handhelds in the past or currently, or are you still waiting for your order to come in? I would love to hear what you guys think about this down below. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. All the other social media garbage down below. And last but not least, have a wonderful day.